Good morning. Happy spooky season. Good morning to everyone joining us online. We're happy to be here together. Just a quick word that we would like to welcome you this morning just as you are. So whatever you're bringing today, just you're welcome. You're welcome in this space with that. We are going to just get a slow roll and start as we do here. So we'll start more officially at 9:40, but a couple questions for you to enjoy and discuss at your table today are, is there a story or meaning behind your first or last name? Good question. What do you consider when naming someone or something? So, a little hint, the service might have something to do with names today.
Well, hello and good morning again, everyone. It's great to see you and to be with you in body or in spirit this morning. I'm Sarah, and I am one of the members and ministers here in our community, and just want to say you are so welcome here. Today, as Leah alluded to through our questions, our theme has something to do with names. Names, and especially names in the Bible, they matter a lot. They tell the story of a person, of a people, and often that's true of us as well, where our names tell stories about our family backgrounds, our family's ethnic history. Maybe they tell stories or obfuscate family secrets, things that we haven't talked about. Sometimes the names we're given feel like they don't fit us, or people call us names that have harmed us. And so today, as we're in the midst of this series about all of us, there's an invitation that we want to consider around what does it mean to bring all of ourselves. And today we'll be sitting with a story from Genesis around the question of what is your name? Not the names that people have put on you or the labels, but in your truest, most free, most alive self, who are you? And so today we'll do that by sitting with a story of a person whose name was changed. It's from Genesis 32, and I'd invite you, it will be on the screen. If you want to Google it, you can do that. Just a couple of notes randomly. We often utilize the NRSV version of the Bible, New Revised Standard. There is now an updated edition, which you can find. We utilize that because it's both takes seriously the latest scholarship, and the translation committees are reflective of more of the diversity of humans. So there are people of different genders, people who are from not just the United States, people who have different backgrounds who are part of that translation, because as we know as humans, we can all look at the same thing and have a little bit different interpretations. So the one that we're going to see on the screen today is from the NRSV, and I'm reading from a version called the Inclusive Bible. So here we'll start off as in Genesis 32, verse 22. In the course of that night, Jacob arose, took the entire caravan, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok River. After Jacob had crossed with all his possessions, he returned to the camp, and he was completely alone. And there, someone wrestled with Jacob until the first light of dawn. Seeing that Jacob could not be overpowered, the other struck Jacob at the socket of the hip, and the hip was dislocated as they wrestled. Then Jacob's contender said, "Let me go, for day is breaking." Jacob answered, "I will not let you go until you bless me." "What is your name?" the other asked. "Jacob," he answered. The other said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob or heel grabber, but Israel, overcomer of God. Because you have wrestled with both God and mortals, and you have prevailed." Then Jacob asked, "Now tell me your name, I beg you." The other said, "Why do you ask me my name?" and blessed Jacob there. Jacob named the place Peniel, face of God, because I have seen God face to face, yet my life was spared. At sunrise, Jacob left that place, limping along from an injured hip. That is why, to this day, Israelites do not eat the sciatic muscle that is on an animal's hip socket, because Jacob's hip socket was struck at the sciatic muscle. That's Genesis 32, folks. So, just sitting with that as we begin and move further in with our theme today, to sit with just maybe what wonders or noticings you have as you heard that story, thinking about your own names, what you've wrestled with in your life and who you've wrestled with. as we sing this first song about kind of what does it mean to be a person who lives from a place of knowing who we are.
Well, I won't back down. Oh, I won't back down. You can stand me up at the gates of hell, but I won't back down. No, I stand my ground. Won't be turned around. And I keep this world from dragging me down. Gonna stand my ground. And I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, I'll stand my ground. And I won't back down. Well, I know what's right, and I got just one life. In a world that keeps on pushing me around, gonna stand my ground. And I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, I'll stand my ground. And I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, I'll stand my ground. And I won't back down. No, I won't back down. No, I won't back down.
Amazing. A rockin' morning, and we're going to keep that rock and rollin' going. It is Georgie. Oh, it's, yeah, George, add an I, and then an E. Georgie the puppet here in human life form, ready for God's garden. So all of our friends, birth through fifth grade who want to come and hang out with us today in God's garden, we're going to sing our God's garden song. And how that works is the band, we're going to sing it once. If you know it, sing it loud. And then we're going to sing it again, and everybody can sing it at that time, but everybody can sing it both times too, because I think we know the song. But, band, are you ready?
Yes.
All right, let's hit it. Ready, Evie?
Come to the garden, gather round, come without fear, known by name here in God's garden, all are welcome here.
Everybody now.
Come to the garden, gather round, come without fear, known by name here in God's garden, all are welcome here.
Woo-hoo-hoo. These are some different faces than I normally see on a Sunday. I mean, similar faces, but I see Harry Potter, and Batman is here today too. It's going to be a really fun God's garden. And friends, you know what that means we have to do now? On the count of three, as loud as we can, we have to say, "Hi, church!" On the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Hi, church! And church, on the count of 3, as loud as you can you say, have fun, kids?
Have fun, kids.
Amazing. There we go. So our pre-K friends will go with Miss Ainsley out that door. Our K through 5th will follow me out that back door there. Thanks, Al.
I got that. I got the Harry Potter. I know the Harry Potter theme.
Oh, amazing. Good morning again. That was so great. Love those kids, which is going to just really nicely transition me into the announcements for today, because if you notice the costumes, the extra fun around, we have Trunk or Treat right after the service out in the parking lot across the way, Countryside Park. If you don't know what that is going to be a bunch of really fun, cool trunks decorated to the nines. It's going to be awesome. Lots of candy, toys for the kids. If you don't have kids or you're not of age, still come. Grab a cup of coffee, just hang out, enjoy the intergenerational mix of all of the people in our community. You're more than welcome. So come and enjoy that. And then also we have a faith and family session coming up. And that is going to be, I don't know the date off the top of my head, next Wednesday. This Wednesday. It's this Wednesday. And now you won't forget, because I forgot and had to tell you that it's this Wednesday, not next Wednesday. So next Wednesday, we will... See? It worked. It worked. You got it. Anyways, we will have faith and family session, raising kids with mental health, and that is going to be 6 to 7:30 this Wednesday in the gathering room. You're more than welcome, and I'm going to invite Sarah up for this.
I'm not doing this to intervene or anything, just so you know this was planned.
Get her out of here.
So wanted to let you know, as we're moving into the beginning of November, this is a time in many Christian traditions where we have All Saints Day. And All Saints Day, or All Souls Day, is a day of intentional remembrance, a time set aside to think about those that we hold in our lives and our stories who have died. And in our community each year, we like to pause and to just take a moment to say aloud the names of those from our community who have died this year. The names are behind me, and I'll read them aloud. As a community, we give thanks for the lives of Greg Anderson, Greg Bennett, Betty Dahlberg, Steve Erdahl, Charlie Ernst, Pam Feld, George Gackel, Eric Gustafson, Bill Lewis, Tiffany Mahane, Clay McCartney, Edith Norquist, Noel Pittman, Virginia Post, David Robb, William Rikers, Arthur Rauner, Alice Sheffy, Dick Schmoker, Gwen Smith, Judy Ware, and Roy Ween. Will you pause and pray with me? God, we give you thanks for the lives of these whom we have named this day. And we give you thanks for the names that we know and the countless other ancestors who have made our lives and this moment possible. Might we be a people who honor life. And God, we give you thanks that you hold and surround these names and these souls and these people whom we have loved even now. Go before us that we might be a people who live. In your name, amen. So as a way of both honoring these lives, and if there are people, whether they're folks who died long ago or someone who died this year, we would invite you to join us. Each year we host a service of remembrance here at the church, and if we could pull that up with the details for that will be November 1st. So Monday night is the 31st, Halloween. Then Tuesday night we have the service of remembrance. It's in the meeting house at 7 p.m. And then Wednesday night, Faith and Family and our meeting house dinner and everything that we gather for. So we invite you to join us for any of those things. Leah, I'll invite you up for our breathe in time. And I'll invite you, you have either a worship guide you received as you came in, it's in the links in our YouTube, or you can take the QR code on your table. We have in the worship guide invitations for you. So if you want to journal or write out things, we want to be intentional about animating your inner listening and voice to what God's bringing up for you today. So, Leah.
All right, for our breathe in, I was reflecting on the scripture for today, the story that we read earlier of Jacob wrestling. And something stood out to me that had never stood out before. And it was this concept of him alone, right? We know that. But then he's wrestling with something. So there's a question there. Is he wrestling with self? Is he wrestling with God? Is he wrestling with someone? Whatever. Question there. And then, can we not put that slide up quite yet? Sorry, thank you. And then I was reading that and thinking, you know, there's mention of physical ailment that had happened in this wrestling. This wrestling caused the hip socket out of joint, like there's physical pain, and we're left with him limping, right? He's gone through this crazy night in wrestling, and he's left with something from it. And that is even seen, as we said, to the day that Jewish people don't eat the thigh as a remembrance, as recognition. And it really got me thinking through some of my own journey and learning more of connecting to my body as self and my embodiment, and not it just being an object. And this book was huge in that for me. It's called The Wisdom of Your Body, and it's by Hillary McBride, and she is a licensed PhD psychologist and has done a ton of work in this and listening and finding healing and wholeness and connection through embodied living. And so a lot of times in Western culture, especially, the way that we understand body is kind of a definition of an object, as I said, right? Or like, I really wanted to do this, but I just can't get my body to do it. Or, I'm just sick. My body's sick. What's wrong with it? And that's really us looking at the body as a thing. And there's a different way through this book of kind of looking at the body as not just something you have, but something that you are. And it really stood out to me. She has you repeat this line that in there that just says, I am my body. And that one line kind of struck me into just thinking in this whole different way of listening to my body and participating in it as a way of who I am. And it's not something to just disregard or ignore. So wrestling with self, wrestling with the things that have brought trauma or pain or grief or joy, I started to realize that my body holds all of this. And so I just think it's really special to also acknowledge, like, if there's one thing true in the neuroscience of healing, it's that change doesn't happen overnight. And it definitely doesn't happen trying to trick ourselves out of a story that we have been grounded or groomed to rehearse, right? I'm okay, I'm fine, I'm okay, I'm fine, I'm okay. And I'm still guilty of doing that. Like, this is an ongoing learning, right? So I wanted us to kind of sit with this story of Jacob and what he embodied through this wrestling, through this process, and think about what does this definition mean to you. And so the definition of a little bit, a glimpse of embodiment that Hillary McBride gives is, she puts it this way. Embodiment is a way to heal the mind-body divide we experience within ourselves and more systematically within Western cultures. To do so, we need to understand we need to understand the self as a body. Our body and our personhood are so intimately connected that they can never be separated. We are not just a mind or a brain carried around by a meat puppet of flesh and bones. Embodiment is a kind of re-remembering of who we really are. Embodiment is coming home, a remembering of our wholeness and a reunion with the fullness of ourselves. And so, yes, we are very much alive in spirit and mind, but we are very much alive in our body. And I remembered this even just days ago. I was really tired, and I felt really sad. And instead of being like, I'm fine, I was like, what am I holding? Why do I feel this way? And then I remembered the date 4 years ago was when my uncle unexpectedly passed away. And our bodies hold that stuff. And it remembers. And connecting to our whole selves in that is a really courageous thing to do. And so I want you to just take a couple minutes with each other, reflect on what maybe is your definition or what have you thought of in embodiment? Like, what does that mean to you? How have you understood it? And are there ways you have learned or practiced or tapped in to start listening to your body and engaging with that as something more going on other than I got sick because I got sick or whatever it might be. So take some time with each other. Unpack a little bit of that. All right, I know there's a lot to talk on in this topic, but just kind of wrap up what you're saying, and we'll invite the band to come back up at this time, but you can finish your thoughts a little bit here.
Show me who I am and who I could be. Initiate the heart within me till it opens properly. Slow down, start again from the beginning. I can't keep my head from spinning out of control. Is this what being vulnerable feels like? And I will try to breathe till it turns to muscle memory. I'm only steady on my knees. One day I'll stand up on my own 2 feet. I'll run the risk of being intimate with brokenness. Through this magnifying glass I see 1,000 fingerprints on the surface of who I am. Show me where to find the silver lining as the mercury keeps rising to the glass, so my fever breaks. Show me how to struggle gracefully. Let the scaffolding inside of me be strong enough to hold this tired body up once more. And I will try to breathe till it turns to muscle memory. I feel the pressure in my blood building up and liberating me. So I will try to breathe till it turns to muscle memory. I'm only steady on my knees. One day I'll be standing on my own 2 feet. And I'll run the risk of being intimate with brokenness. Through this magnifying glass I see 1,000 fingerprints that run the risk of being intimate with my brokenness. I was given a gift of hope in 1,000 fingerprints on the surface of who I am.
Leah highlighted for us in the worship guide the lyric from this song, "I'll run the risk of being intimate with brokenness." And she named that this lyric highlights the courage it takes to wrestle with ourselves. Interacting with things that have broken us often causes us to feel discomfort and pain. Being in the vulnerable spot can make us feel weak, when rather it is the greatest measure of courage. Courage to breathe, to stand on our own 2 feet and experience it as wholeness and healing. And she wondered with us, how might you reframe vulnerability? What does it look like to see our healing as courageous and worth the risk? On Friday night, Andy Garvers and I always call my spouse very often by both of his names. Andy Garvers and I went to the musical Six. Anybody? Okay, well, next time when I ask that question, maybe a couple more of you will have gone because it is the best musical in my not very humble on this matter opinion. And so Six is a musical. It's currently at the Ordway. It is also on Broadway, and it may be in other places around the world, but my knowledge of Broadway music is very US-centric, so I apologize. Six is a musical about Henry VIII's 6 wives. And it is a retelling of their stories. And it starts off as this, we're going to have a pop competition to figure out which one of us should win for the worst life story, being married to this guy. Okay. So as they do and as happens, there's a little bit of kind of what might be labeled as some cattiness in their fighting with one another around divorced, beheaded, died. Divorced, beheaded, survived. That's a quote. And in the end, they end up singing. And it's not a spoiler alert because you would experience it for yourself and it will be radically better than me telling you, okay? They end up being like, why are we fighting with one another about some stupid guy from history when this is about all of us and our stories? And they end up singing this powerful song and inviting the audience who gathers every night to join with them around who gets to tell your story, around what does it mean to inhabit your own story, around reclaiming your story, around not that someone else is the person whose story matters, but that each of us are beautiful authors and embodiments of story. I've seen it 3 times. I saw it twice with the original Broadway cast, before it went to Broadway, when it was going to open on the night of 2020 when all of Broadway went dark. Okay, so they never opened until recently. And now they are touring, and I went again, and I'm trying to figure out how I can go 2 or 3 more times before it leaves the Ordway. There's a lot of reasons I love this musical. The one might not be shocking to some of you is that it's pop music, okay? The 6 women are based off of Ariana Grande, Beyonce, Adele, Avril Lavigne. So I enjoy that, okay? There's no lie. The other thing is I, of course, enjoy a story where 6 women who have been told throughout the lens of history the story of a dude get to tell their own story. I do appreciate that. That's also very enjoyable. But I love how actually in their reclaiming their own story, it's such a human thing. Because as I look around at the sold-out audience at the Ordway on Friday night at the end of the musical, and you could see joy and longing on people's faces. Because how many of us have not known the pain of having someone else tell us what our story must be? of someone trying to render our stories invisible or irrelevant or less than. And how many of us, even the life of faith, has been something that's animated this sense of I am made in the image of God and I am loved. And that beauty of being seen changes and transforms us. And so, I love the musical Six. It makes me think about, and I bring it up because of Genesis 32. As we read and as we've been talking about, when Jacob was born, he was given the name, that name, and it means something like an overreacher, one who supplants, a heel grabber. There's something about it that's like not a particularly, it's not a nice name, right? He's like a trickster in a duplicitous sort of way. And if you know anything about his story, that actually is a very appropriate name, right? As I said, names in the Hebrew Bible mean a lot. Okay? He's the second-born son of twins and comes out grasping for his brother's heel. His brother is supposed to be the one to inherit. And indeed, Jacob and his mother trick the dad, and they get Jacob to get the inheritance, okay? So just think about that. Like, since he was born, he was the supplanter. He was the heel grabber, the trickster. Do any of you have stories of a name you were called as a kid, or a story about who you were that actually was painful, or didn't fit, or you rebelled against? One of the stories I remember about myself growing up is I was 8 weeks premature. And I don't know how old I was when I first heard this story. But as the story goes, when I was in the NICU, one of the nurses said to my mom, "Oh, Sarah, she's the sweetest baby. She never cries. She's going to be just like that when she grows up." And it was told like it was this beautiful story, and isn't it so great that Sarah's the sweetest baby and she never cries? But I internalized from that, be sweet, don't have any needs, and don't cry, right? I wasn't crying because I was 8 weeks premature and I was like barely alive, like babies cry. Like, that's how I know Josie. And Josie's like super chill, right? So I'm also very conscious about being like, you can cry, Josie. Like, Josie's super chill. But I love it, like, when Josie's like, Josie's really into food, which I think all humans are, but Josie's like really into it in a baby way. And Josie will be like, "Rah!" I'm like, "Okay, you're hungry." And then Josie's like, "It's great, everything's great, you fed me," right? That's a normal thing for babies to say, "Hey, feed me. Hey, change me. Hey, hold me." So that was a story that shaped me. And I'm sure that many of you have stories or names that you were called that have actually been painful or limiting. And so here in Genesis 32, Jacob wrestles. It's not really clear from the text. There's a tradition around the text, but it's not actually really clear who Jacob is wrestling with. A mysterious stranger, an angel, a messenger of God, himself? Is this psychological? Does it really happen with a physical being? Is it God? Is it all of those things somehow in one? As a story of a very human story about how we all must wrestle, and we do. We know, though, that he does wrestle. And in this wrestling through the night, which, again, who's ever done this? Slide plug for Taylor Swift's latest album, Midnights, about those experiences you have on nights you don't sleep. So he wrestles through the night and is renamed Israel, which becomes not only his name, but the name of a people. It's connected, it seems, actually to the root word Sarah, hi, and to El, which is one of the names for God, Elohim, El. It's the sense of the one who contends, who prevails, God struggles, the one who struggles with God. These sorts of, his name goes from this negative connotation of the heel grabber, the trickster, the one who supplants, to the one who wrestles, who prevails, who overcomes, who is with God in the wrestling, and his name is changed. Thinking about this last week, I started thinking about, and I have family in town and this weekend as well, so I was thinking about families and the names and the stories. And just how in my family I was very much the good girl. And how many of us, we have our family scripts or the family rules or norms about who we're supposed to be, what it means to be the good daughter or son-in-law, family member, etc. And that sometimes it can be really hard to change those patterns, even if we want them to change. And I was thinking about that both in terms of Jacob's story and in terms of the story from Matthew chapter 10. In Matthew chapter 10, Jesus is talking to the disciples as he's sending them out. And he basically says, if people don't accept you in the town, shake the dust off your feet and leave. And then as the passage continues, Jesus is talking and he says, don't think that I just came to bring peace. I actually came to bring the sword and actually to turn family members against one another. Now, I don't know about you, but that's not a passage I've heard preached a lot in church because I notice my anxiety goes up a little bit when I just even talk about it. But I was thinking about that in terms of family system rules or even cultural norms around what it means to be a good citizen, what it means to be a good whatever your race is or your gender. And how Jesus is troubling those waters to say sometimes there's names you've been called or stories you've been tutored into that are actually keeping you from being really alive, that are keeping you from being able to turn towards your neighbor or yourself in love. And Jesus is like, I'm here to trouble the water a little bit. I'm here to wrestle with you through the night and to give you a new name that is a name of life. Some of you I actually know have gone by different names in your life, right? I literally had a conversation this morning with someone. I know this about some of you. When I went to college, I was Sarah Lynn. And Sarah Lynn was a humongous personality who never slept and was always like, hi! I'm no longer Sarah Lynn. But still my name is Sarah Lynn Wilhelm Garbers, but I go by Sarah because it's a little more chill, right? So some of you have symbolically actually changed what you wanted people to call you because the name didn't fit. How many of us have not had experiences where we've changed and we've gone into a new space in a way to ask people to relate to us differently? This is why sometimes when folks get up in arms about people coming to clarity around their own gender identity and changing their names and dead name them, I'm like, have you read Genesis 32? Because God changes Jacob's name to a more true story about who he is. Having our name changed, living out a different story can be really terrifying. But if you've ever taken the risk to step out a little bit more into who you know you are or you long to be, do you know the or you long to be? Do you know the goodness and the life you feel in that? Anyone ever had that experience of you've been like, okay, here's what I need to be. What if I dare to like break the rules and be a little bit more myself, and then you do, and then you're like, I didn't die. Oh my gosh, that felt kind of good. And it feels hard and terrible a lot too, let's be honest, right? But this is part of the beauty of the invitation of the life of faith. That the God who wrestles with humans and leaves them changed is the God who still wrestles and invites us to wrestle today. That we might more truly be the names that God calls us. And that in so doing, not only might we be more alive, but we get to be people who help to celebrate and foster space for each other to be called by our true names as well. What is your name? What's the name you hear or you long to be called? How might we open ourselves more to be a people who wrestle through the night? Who then walk in ways where we are changed, but walk with more freedom, being able to name, as Jacob did, this is the place then where we come face to face with God. And then maybe we'll sing our own musicals. As I know I do when I have my windows down listening to songs like the one we just sang. And my hands out the window, screaming off key. I will run the risk of being intimate with my brokenness. Will you pray with me? God, you know all of the reasons throughout our lives where we have learned to not even say our true names to ourselves. Where we have been tutored in stories that have been too small or painful. And God, it can be terrifying to go back and to touch those places. So God, I pray that by your Spirit you would meet us and invite us lovingly into those tender places. That you would hold us as we wrestle, and indeed many of us wrestle with being held. That in that we might hear our truer names. That we might in these bodies and in these skins hear the words of loving kindness that you whisper over us. No, that is not your name. Here is your name, be at peace. For each of these gathered and for the beauty and wonder of how you have fashioned each of them as unique, beautiful representations of your image, I give thanks. Might we be people called by our names, and in so doing, might we be a people who foster space for others to be known by their names as well. It's in the name of Jesus that we live. Amen. So as we turn to this time of breathe out, I'd invite you to share with your neighbors. Is there a name that you've been called that doesn't fit you? Maybe even a story that you've lived into that you might want to interrogate a little bit. And I'll invite you to just share with one another for the next few minutes. And then we'll close with our final song. Okay. I'll invite who's ever sharing to wrap up as we sing our last song. But just a thank you, and may you feel free in being who you are.
I've been afraid all of my life, crippled with anxiety, shame and doubt. Sometimes I'd like to shout at the top of my lungs and just let it out. What has that fear ever done for me? Would hold me back. Oh, what has jealousy and hate ever done for you? But remind you of what you think you lack. So give me love and give me compassion, self-forgiveness and give me some passion. I love you even if you don't love me. I love you even if you can't love me. All this pain that I've kept concealed, but if it didn't speak, it wouldn't be real. But sometimes I feel I have to shout at the top of my lungs and just let it out. What has that fear ever done for me? But hold me back. So give me love and give me compassion, self-forgiveness and give me some passion. I love you even if you don't love me. I love you even if you can't love me. You've been staring at your mirror, trying to make the picture clearer. But angel, can't you see who's in front of you? So give me love and give me compassion, self-forgiveness and give me some passion. I love you even if you don't love me. I love you. Oh, can't you see you're free? Oh, angel, can't you see that you're free? Oh, angel, can't you see you're free?
Very much to our friends from the animal families. The trunk or treat again, 11 o'clock. Join us for that. And what else? There was something else. I don't know. What I would just like to do then is give a benediction. To this last song on that question, what has fear ever done for us but hold us back? So may the God who is known by many names, but whose name is fundamentally love, be the God who meets you and as you wrestle, that you might know this love and compassion and freedom, and that you might know your name. Go in that love and have a great week. Amen.